Alrighty, the theory that I wanted to talk about today is one that it's kind of rolled around in my head. I just kind of accepted it. I just kind of thought it was truth. I don't know, with the implications of it. And I realized I hadn't really ever talked about it with other people. And then when I did start talking to them about it, I realized it wasn't as granted or accepted widely by other people as I had taken it to be. So then I thought I'd talk about it and see what you guys think about it as well. So the theory I felt was like totally confirmed in Tress. So we'll start with that particular quote. "I'm sorry, Tress. I can't let you face the sorceress. I can't. For your own good, you see." Ah, those words. I've heard those words. I've said those words. The words that proclaim in bald-faced arrogance, "I don't trust you to make your own decisions." The words we pretend will soften the blow, yet instead layer condescension on top of already existent pain, like dirt on a corpse. Oh yes, I've said those words. I said them with 16 other people, in fact. Chapter 56, The Traitor. Okay, so who are these other 16 people, right? That's a big word in the Cosmere, right? Those are the shards of Adonalsium. Who are they talking about or to, right? They're talking to Adonalsium. And they say, for his own good. So to me, the theory that I'm putting out there is that the shattering of Adonalsium was much more of a court procedure or a corporate ousting rather than an actual violent occurrence.
The board expects your resignation in 30 days.
But you can't do this to me.
You're out, Norman.
Didn't you get the memo?
So this isn't a coup or the Ides of March, right? This is someone being kind of almost willingly, like forced, kind of a reluctant acceptance. This first came to me when I was reading Dawn Shard, right? And we learned what the Dawn Shards actually were for certain during the reading of Dawn Shard, right? That they are these eternal truths, right? These must-be's, essence commands, stating that something must be. We also learned that they were the primary means by which Adonalsium was split. So why would a must-be or an essence command be the reason that Adonalsium had to split? And it's when several of those, like what we see with Harmony or what we see in Sunlit Man, if some of those come into conflict with each other.
A reaction to every action.
There's a phrase in my scripture, in my religion, that's God would cease to be God. Now, part of me just feels like I'm seeing teenage Brandon hearing these words because I share Brandon's faith. And that doesn't mean that I understand all of his beliefs or that I can break down what his beliefs are, but I do know what scriptures and teachings he's been exposed to. And in sharing that faith, I think I just visualize teenage Brandon hearing that phrase and wondering what it would be like in a story. So a little background on where the phrase comes from. So this phrase of scripture says is in a chapter where it's talking about mercy and justice and how it's really hard for man to understand how those two things are compatible, right? And that the scripture says that if God didn't have mercy and he didn't have justice, then God would cease to be God, that he can fulfill those both things in a ways that man can't quite, right? So, and I think that is exactly what Brandon has done here, is he's created a fantasy story in which there were two forces, kind of like mercy and justice, or when we see with Harmony, we see ruin and preservation in conflict with each other, right? So somehow the 16 shards of what are now the 16 shards of Adonalsium came up with a way to put things so much, the Dawn Shard, so much in conflict that Adonalsium had to acquiesce. So for this particular occurrence to take place, right, it makes me feel like, and the quote on Tress supports this, that Adonalsium is alive, right? Maybe he's not who he was or the being that he was, but the Adonalsium is totally alive. And because why would it be for your own good? How could somebody say for your own good if it was to kill someone. I don't think that would be for their good. They might say for the good of the Cosmere, but they would say for your own good, right? So that's interesting, unless things went differently than they expected, right? So Adonalsium certainly could still be dead. But there are lots of other evidences in the Cosmere that he is certainly alive. The first of which is the religion of the Long Trail, which we get in Words of Radiance in one of our interludes, right? That we learn about the religion of the Iriali, right? Who are the people that have traveled from planet to planet to planet. We hear this story from the shoemaker that we only get a little tiny glimpse of before he's taken away from us by Nail. "You're really going to give me a pair of shoes?" the urchin said. "For nothing?" "Nothing but your story," Yim said, slipping another testing shoe onto the boy's foot. He'd given up on trying to train urchins to wear socks. "Why?" "Because," Yim said, "you and I are one." "One what?" "One being," Yim said. He set aside that shoe and got out another. "Long ago there was only one. One knew everything but had experienced nothing, and so one became many. Us. People. The one, who was both male and female, did so to experience all things." "One? You mean God?" "If you wish to say it that way," Yim said. "But it is not completely true. I accept no God. You should accept no God. We are Iriali, and part of the Long Trail, this is the fourth land." "You sound like a priest." "Accept no priests either," Yim said. "Those are from other lands, come to preach to us. Iriali need no preaching, only experience. As each experience is different, it brings completeness. Eventually, all will be gathered back in, when the seventh land is attained, and we will once again become one." "So you and me," the urchin said, "are the same?" "Yes, two minds of a single being experiencing different lives." Okay, so do the Iriali have it perfect? Probably not, but it's coming from somewhere, and the Iriali definitely have a little bit more foresight into the greater Cosmere at that time, right, in Roshar, than what we're used to seeing from other Rosharans, other than other world travelers, right? So when will we actually find out all about this? Probably not until the end of Brandon's career, right? He's kind of laid out different schedules for us, but it looks like Dragonsteel, the book, not Dragonsteel Prime, but the one that the reiteration that he's going to put out, looks like it's going to be like the second to last release before Stormlight 10, right? So this is kind of the culmination of the whole Cosmere. We'll get the fullness of the backstory, and then we'll get the conclusion, which sounds really epic. So other evidences of Adonalsium being alive and the splitting happening, or the shattering happening in this fashion, is the unite them and kind of the fractalness that we already get from it, right, as it keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? At first we thought it was just the High Princes, and then it's all of the countries on Roshar. It's the Knights Radiant. It's actually the different realms that he's uniting, right? Dalinar's uniting a ton of different things, right? And so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and so it eventually will probably be the shards of Adonalsium. Okay, another big evidence, probably the biggest I think, is actually the prologue or epilogue to Words of Radiance, when we have Wit and Yasna and their conversation. "You're so convinced that there is no God." "The Almighty is..." "Oh," Wit said, "I don't mean the Almighty. Tanavast was a fine enough fellow, bought me drinks once, but he was not God. I'll admit, Yasna, that I empathize with your skepticism, but I don't agree with it. I just think you've been looking for God in the wrong places." "I suppose you're going to tell me where you think I should look." "You'll find God in the same place you're going to find salvation from this mess," Wit said, "inside the hearts of men." "Curiously," Yasna said, "I believe I can actually agree with that, though I suspect for different reasons than you imply. Perhaps this walk won't be as bad as I had feared." Okay, so in this quote, "in the hearts of men," on this planet there are literally gem hearts that hold investiture. And if we go to Nalthis, there's a breath or investiture that everyone is born with, right? And so if we tie that obviousness in to what Contemplation says in Sunlit Man. "Contemplation," he said, "I don't mean to be contrary, but Adonalsium, he's dead?" she asked. "Yes, we know. Did you think we had no idea of the story? The shattering? The shards?" Yes. So I assumed, since you still talk about him and, well, pray." "Our faith," she said, "is that this is all part of some plan. It's not about everything happening the way we want, but trusting that it is happening the way someone wants." "I find that a little naive." And yet, the old woman said, here you are, saving us. That was because of auxiliary, he said. My shield here, who gave up his last vestige of life so I could come to you in time. And what was auxiliary? My spren, a quantum of power and vesture come to life. And where did that being come from? From a shard of Adonalsium? Storms. I agree largely with Contemplation's assessment that this is all working according to Adonalsium's plan B or P or whatever plan it is, right? Um, and I can't disconnect this passage to the end of Oathbringer either, right? Where we have this experience with Dalinar and he's writing his book and he gets the warm fuzzies. And I'm less confident that they're actually connected, but somehow they still seem like it's all part of this foreshadowing that Brandon's weaving. In Oathbringer, Dalinar refers to himself as Unity, and then, of course, Odium's like, we killed you! And then second, at the very end of Oathbringer, when he's feeling those warm fuzzies, would you close the balcony doors again, Gemheart? He asked her. The sunlight is distracting me from the other light. Other light? He nodded absently. What next? As Navani shut the balcony doors, he closed his eyes and felt the warmth of a distant, unseen light. Then he smiled, and, with a hand still unsteady, like the legs of a child taking his first steps, he took another page and wrote a title for the book. We don't get any other context of what this other light is. Dalinar doesn't refer to it in Rhythm of War, so it's kind of left ambiguous to us, but it's like he's connecting. He's been a uniter. He united the realms, right? And then here he's called himself Unity, and now he has this other light that he feels. It's like that there's little shards of the God that he's starting to feel connect as he's uniting people. So, like I said, for some of you, this may seem like a no duh, that obviously this is how the shattering happened as a process. And that, of course, Adonalsium is still here, and the plan is to unite all, have Adonalsium come together all in one being. What that would look like is crazy and fun, but at the same time, it's going to have to ramp up. So if we got like half of an Adonalsium, so like if Sazed Harmony got a bunch of the shards, right? That wouldn't feel as climatic as maybe that there's an evil forces that has gathered most of these things together. But I don't know. It's really exciting to find out. Obviously, probably not super controversial to think that the shards are all going to come together to reform Adonalsium. More of the thing that I wanted to shed light on today that I realized that people didn't feel the same way as I did, and maybe it was because I had that shared background with Brandon, or maybe I'm totally wrong. But certainly let me know down in the comments and see, do you think that the shattering was more of a procedure, or was there more like a violent coup and takeover? Or what are your thoughts on that? So let me know. Thanks.